Welcome to the Monday, March 13th, Education Committee and Supplementary Regular Meeting of the Board of School Directors. Before I turn the meeting over to Mr. Copeland, obviously we all know about the impending storm, so my kids were doing a little dance before I left. So we just want to be mindful of that, given the storm. And so we'll have a presentation, open it up for a short board questions and comments, and then also open it up to public comment. So our goal will be to wrap around 9 p.m. just so that we are cautious about folks getting home safely. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Copeland.
Thank you, Dr. Van Lynch. It pains me greatly to hear the children are happy not to be coming to school, but somehow I get the idea. Yes, what we'd like to do is extend the strategic plan update and some other kinds of things at the business meeting for the next time. What Dr. Everslage is going to do is present some of the work that's been done throughout the year on the middle school schedule. One of the things that we wanted to do is take a look at and I really shouldn't say middle school schedule, I should say middle school program, because there's a lot of emphasis on the schedule, but it really our real intent was to make sure that we could implement various strategies in our strategic plan, but also recognizing that, in fact, that the time that we have in the day is finite, and we have to make the best use of it. One of the things that is a hallmark of the strategic plan is student-centered schools, and I think that the strategies that the group has come up with are going to work to our benefit. There are some handouts, I think, for the public. Do they have these? Do we have enough for the public? No?
We have some extra copies.
We have some extra copies. But this will go out to the public. There's one for Ballackinwood Middle School. There's one for Welsh Valley Middle School. There's also going to be forums at each one of the middle schools. That's this week, Dr. Everslaw?
Yes.
This week, so parents will have an opportunity to hear from principals. We'll give an abbreviated review of this again on Monday at the board meeting. And so there'll be plenty of opportunity for the public to weigh in on this. With that, Dr. Everslage.
Thank you, Mr. Copeland. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. It's my pleasure this evening to speak to you about a process that we've been engaged in for a very long time. Actually, I was the principal at Welsh Valley in 2009, and we were talking about the schedule and the differences. And since then, we have we made a few attempts to try to align our programs and middle school schedules, including most recently last year when we hired a consultant to do some work with us and the district, and quite honestly, after a very short time with us, we thought as if we wanted to put that on hold and pursue that different direction and look, because the consultant was looking at more from the schedules strictly from a technical angle, and we thought that the more important lens was through the programmatic and student lens. And so we engaged in a process internally throughout this year that has taken us here. And so tonight I'm going to talk a little bit more about the background, why we are aligning schedules, the process that we've gone through, some considerations that we have already to make, and a recommendation moving forward. So I talked a little bit about our timeline background on this matter. But more importantly, I think that we all agree that we have two wonderful middle schools, each with their own unique programs, their unique aspects that provide wonderful experiences for students. There are differences between the buildings, including the bell schedules, and those differences result in students having different experiences based on the middle school that they attend. So when delivery varies across the district, planning in a lot of ways can be challenging, including curricular and student experience, planning for curriculum, and student planning. So why are we aligning the schedules? We're aligning, first and foremost, our strategic plan drives us in a way to look at our programs through a student-centered lens, and one that involves student choice, student voice in their program. That was a driving factor as well. But we, of course, want program equity and curriculum alignment across our two middle schools. We have been open with the idea of the value of sharing resources, and sharing resources, as many of you know, at the high school level, we've gone through this process relatively recently where we worked to align our schedules, align our programs, and it's been really every year there's been more and more benefits to that. The alignment of our programs has really allowed for sustainability in our programs and really open doors where we could have some flexibility to support student voice at the high school level, and we look to do that as well at the middle school level. And at the same time, we want to be sure that we maintain the unique aspects of each school. There's a wonderful culture in each school, and there are great unique factors of each school, and we expect that to continue. But we also expect there to be guaranteed learning experiences for all students. When we talk about our programs and talk about the student experience, we often talk about what is the essential learning in a course. What do we expect students to minimally leave the course with what skills? And when the delivery of courses is different across the district, the essential learning in those courses is very different. So the process of alignment is going to accomplish some things, and it's not going to accomplish some things. We certainly hope that, again, strategic plan will be seen as we go through this process. It'll be more visible. We'll have, bless you, we'll have guaranteed curricular experiences for students across the building. We'll have increased equity and consistency for students across the district, and we'll increase efficiency and delivery of our planning of use of resources. We are certainly not doing this to make things identical at the two schools and to create sameness for the sake of sameness. I think that the high school example is a great one in that similarly, where we had high schools with two similar programs, there are two very unique and special cultures in the high schools that where there certainly is not sameness across. But I would say very collaborative and positive sharing that occurs professionally, which results in benefits for students. So the process that we've gone through, we started by informing our stakeholders this fall of more formally engaging in this process. We talked to parents, students, and teachers about engaging in the process. We engaged in surveys, teachers, parents, and students. We analyzed those results. When I say we, I'm referring to a group of administrators at both schools. The administrative team at both Welsh Valley and Ballard-Kinwood worked with me specifically, but other members of our curricular team as well, to really help guide our staffs and our communities through this process. After we got the survey results, we analyzed those results. We sat down with them together across the buildings, and we identified differences not only in our programs now, but of those differences, which of those are valuable enough to be aligned and which are okay if they're different. That was part of our process. And we established some philosophical and technical agreements that would drive our thought process through this. And I'm going to share those with you momentarily. After we had those agreements, we pursued multiple options that met the agreements, and we compared those two final options and made a recommendations, and I'll share that with you momentarily. So some values that emerged through this process. First and foremost, there was a strong feeling from both school communities that teaming is core to the middle school experience, and we would maintain teaming. Very important to what the middle school experience is for students as a student support. Staff and parents, teachers, everyone was on board with maintaining teaming. We've also seen the benefit of daily intervention and enrichment time. Over 70% of our staff said that learn time every day was important or very important. Administration views this as a high value, and students are surveying saying that they are using learn time productively. Other values that emerge is to ensure that core classes meet every day. There was some thought for have different courses not meet certain days to allow for extended time. We did not pursue that because it was very clear that people wanted to maintain core classes every day for students. We wanted to maintain classes around the 40 to 50 minute range where they are now. There was momentum for increasing student choice in the schedule. And I was pleased that there was a strong value for recognizing teacher collaboration time. All 4 secondary schools have really worked hard to schedule in a way that allows for effective teacher collaboration time, and we want to maintain that in our schedule. And a strong priority was, of course, to maintain the time devoted daily to personal development classes or specials. Students at the middle school level are afforded 2 periods throughout the day for specials or personal development classes. We all felt strongly that that to be maintained and wouldn't be sacrificed through this process. And some additional values that emerged regarding the specials. That not only is the daytime, I just mentioned that, 2 periods of specials every day, but we're going to balance that where every student in each grade will have a morning and afternoon special, and every 6th, 7th, and 8th across both middle schools. And we wanted to, of course, keep our programs. We feel very strongly are excellent programs at the middle school. We want to maintain those programs, but also ensure that there's a more balanced and equitable distribution over the middle school years of those experiences. And we wanted to incorporate student choice into the aspect of specials. Of course, finding the right balance of how much choice is enough choice is one that we have measured throughout this process, but of course, on an ongoing basis, we'll reassess. After we found examples of agreements on our values, both technical and philosophical agreements, we pursued two schedules and had two schedules that met those agreements to different degrees. We have a 6-day schedule and a 4-day cycle and a 6-day cycle. So when we look at the schedules, the current schedule options for both, the current daily schedule for both options, the current schedule, you'll see throughout the presentation some of the differences between the 2 schools now. And again, I share these to share that there are differences, and this isn't about judging which is better or which is a better model, but us trying to move towards alignment. The current model, Welsh Valley, you can see has 10 periods, BC has 9 periods. There are some differences, including time of the day that the day starts, the regularity of learn time. But there are also some agreements that both schools, some commonalities of both schools that we will be maintaining: the core classes daily, the 2 personal development classes daily, and there is some variation in the period lengths per school. However, they are close. The proposed schedules, both of them in the 6-day cycle or the 4-day cycle, are listed on the far right. Both would not have a homeroom, would continue with 5 core classes and 2 personal development classes. Of course, students would get a 30-minute lunch. There would be a daily learn period of 34 minutes with a school start time of 8:15, and the periods would be 46 minutes in length. They'd be consistent period lengths throughout the day. So we're going to share with you the 2 options. The first one is the 6-day schedule, and in the spirit of openness, this is not going to be the recommendation that we are going to move forward. However, I do want to share with you that what the aspects of this that we were considering. What I do think you'll see valuable is if you focus on the left-hand side of the screen, you will see the current delivery of the courses and the differences between the 2 schools. That will be maintain consistency throughout the different models that we present. So currently you can see there are differences in the personal development classes that 6th grade students have at both schools. Specifically, health is offered only at Welsh Valley to 6th graders. And then you can see in the bottom left of the grid with how art, computers, family consumer science, and tech ed are delivered differently across the buildings. Again, advantages to each model, disadvantages to each model as well. We were seeking commonality. The proposed for the 6-day cycle would be that currently those classes in the top left meet 2 out of 6. In the proposed 6-day model, they would also meet 2 out of 6. There is a downside to this model in that there would not be health that would be delivered to 6th grade. And then the specials that are in the bottom right would be delivered 3 out of 6 days, basically every other day, but we would would make those days consecutive, so 3 consecutive days of one, 3 consecutive days of the other, and then they would flip for the second semester. Additional note about this schedule would be that if a student were to receive challenge, support class, and if they were in an ISL, or if they had math support, for example, those experiences would be included in this at the expense of one of the personal development classes or experiences for students. We involve parents in those decisions and teams in those as far as what experience would be replaced, but it would be replacing one of those experiences. Moving on to 7th grade, you can see some differences in the bottom left with how things are delivered between the two schools. There is no FLES in 7th grade, so it does allow for health to be introduced into the daily schedule. I'm sorry, the schedule, not daily. But the regularity of the classes currently and how they're proposed is on this screen, as well as the bottom right. One positive for this, a drawback of this model in 7th grade is that there is not choice that would be introduced in 7th grade with this model. 8th grade, similar, apologize. 8th grade, similar to 7th grade. However, in 8th grade, we would introduce choice in the bottom right hand corner of the screen. There are four personal development experiences: art, computers, family and consumer science, and tech ed. We would ask students what their top choice would be, to rank the choices 1 to 4. We've already done this. The schedules at both middle schools were able to determine that if this were the scheduled delivery that we pursued, that students, almost every student would be able to get their top choice, but every student would be able to get one of their top 2 choices for the elective option. Again, this is still the 6-day rotation, just a sample schedule, what it would look like on a day-to-day basis. You can see one of the advantages of this schedule is if you look at the personal development period 2, teachers would have a student for 3 consecutive days in a discipline that would, of course, flip-flop at the semester, and then they would have a second period daily of personal development that would meet 2 out of 6. That's similar to the delivery now at both schools. Looking at a 6th grade schedule, this was just an example of if a student were to be a part of Challenge or have an ISL as an IEP student, or if a student were in Math Supplement, just a possible schedule. Again, each of those situations are very individualized based on the student and the amount of need. But in this example, those experiences would replace one of the personal development experiences. So some unique benefits of the 6-day schedule in comparison to the 4-day schedule. The 6-day schedule allows for longer stretches of instructional continuity for 3 consecutive days for a student to be in one class for the semester. They wouldn't be spread out quite as much, and it would maintain a 6-day rotation that we currently have, and maintain how some of those supports are currently offered. Some disadvantages or drawbacks to the 6-day schedule. There's less student choice in electives than the 4-day schedule. Support and/or enrichment classes would always replace another personal development experience. We think that's one of the drawbacks of our current schedule now, and would be of this. There is Similarly, those 2nd and 3rd bullets are connected. There's less flexibility for scheduling student support classes. Health is not offered in 6th grade, which we view as a significant drawback. And it's more difficult to share resources with the high school. And while we are maybe quick to dismiss that, there are really programmatic advantages to students who are ready to, as we look at the math acceleration and students that are in different levels and programs across the district. Offering flexibility for them, for their scheduling, benefits them and benefits the district. So this is, I'm going to shift to the 4-day cycle schedule, and this is a duplicate of the earlier slide just to kind of share the differences. Again, the proposed bell schedule looks similar. So looking at the 4-day schedule, the left-hand side of this screen is exactly the same as it was with the 6-day cycle, as far as how classes are currently delivered, what is and is not delivered in 6th grade. And moving to the proposed side, there is the difference here would be you'd have some classes, the top right, that would meet 1 out of 4 days, and the bottom classes, they would meet 2 out of 4 days for a semester. So what that in essence did is we had 8 experiences across the 6th grade, 8 personal development experiences that are across this 6th grade. Those 8 experiences currently are delivered unequally. They have some that are delivered 60 days, some that are delivered 30 days. And what this does is take these 8 experiences and equally divides it where they're meeting 45 times per year. So each of those 8 experiences. So if you think of what the student experiences in 5th grade as they're transitioning to the middle school, the 5th grade experience, 5th grade runs on a 5-day cycle, and they have each special phys ed, FLES, art, music, and library one time every 5 days. So they're moving from a model where they have 36 meetings of those classes a year to 36 meetings of 5 specials a year to 6th grade, where they're moving to 45 meetings of 8 specials a year, and they're having more time in personal development classes than they did across from 5th grade, and a more balanced approach than we have currently. Currently at Ballackinwood Middle School, 6th graders are offered double music requests in 6th grade. We want to continue that and across both schools, and so students that chose to pursue double music in 6th grade will honor that request. However, it would be at the expense of one of the other personal development experiences in 6th grade. Moving on to 7th grade, again, the left-hand side of the screen, the same as it was. The right-hand side of the screen is slightly different because instead of 8 experiences, there are 7. And the reason there's 7 is because FLES is no longer a personal development class for 7th graders. Students are then taking world language every day. So there's an additional gap in the schedule where that 8th class was, and we're introducing a choice for 7th graders to fulfill that extra gap, that extra period with either music or phys ed. So students, instead of offering 45 classes, which they could if they chose, 45 of each as they did in 6th grade, they'd have 45 of the ones in the bottom right and 45 of the ones in the top right, and then they would choose between music or PE, so they could have 90 meetings in either of those in music or PE. So if I'm a student that really wants to engage in music, I can double my music time in 7th grade if I choose to. And moving on to 8th grade. The options that students had that are indicated in the top right in 7th grade would continue. So students would still have the option of having additional music or phys ed. In addition to that, they are invited to, they're invited similarly to the 6-day schedule to choose full year electives in 2 of the 4 personal development classes that are in the bottom right-hand corner. So if I'm a student that really wanted to pursue music, I could do that and double my music time and the top right choice. And the bottom right choice, I could also, if I really wanted to pursue art and family and consumer sciences, I could have a more intense experience in both of those elective choices throughout my 8th grade year. So similarly, looking at a bell schedule, the bell schedule just visualizes what we just reviewed. This would be a 6-day schedule with how the semesters are distributed in the courses. This is the 7th grade schedule. A benefit to this as well is that extra period that students can choose, extra phys ed or music. If a student has challenge or has a support class, an ISL, they can take that class in that spot in their schedule without it being at the expense of another personal development class. It's a big advantage of this schedule. And the typical 8th grade schedule, of course, would have the most variation because it has the most amount of choice. So the students have some choice in 6th grade, a little bit more choice in 7th grade, and the most amount of choice in 8th grade. So just to give an idea of what a unique schedule would look like if a student were to have some supports built into their schedule. Again, these decisions would be made with the family. So the amount of support that a student would need, whether that's enrichment, challenge, ISL, math support, or anything, is all based on need by the student. But in many cases, those experiences in 6th grade would replace some other personal development classes that are in place. So there are some benefits to the 4-day schedule. As I said earlier, it provides opportunity for challenged students to have all personal development classes in 7th and 8th grade students. Really, those first 2 bullets are one and the same. Students have more options for scheduling support classes. Support would include challenge or would include math support, ISL, or any of those. This model includes health at all grade levels across both schools. It increases student elective choices for 7th and 8th grade, and a possibility of greater shared resources. The disadvantages of the 4-day schedule in comparison to the 6-day is it is a change of practice from the current 6-day cycle. There is a little less instructional continuity for art, family, consumer sciences, computers, tech ed, and the personal development classes especially. So we will be recommending that the schedule that's adopted is the 4-day cycle. We think that its benefits are more aligned with strategic plan. They're more aligned with the feedback that we received from surveys of our stakeholders. We feel it's more student-friendly schedule, including greater scheduling flexibility for scheduling student supports and having student voice. That said, we want to be very open with the fact that there will be challenges to any schedule that we adopt, and we know that there are going to be challenges. And one of them is simply kind of reculturing your school and making it work in your school, allowing schools to put their own unique stamp on the school. I use music as an example. We have wonderful music programs in our schools. We obviously want to continue that and continue those supports for our students and for our community. But music is scheduled in a very nuanced way in every building, every secondary building, every elementary building. There are unique aspects to a music program that make it hard to compare to other specials with the performance element, with lessons, with rehearsals. We acknowledge that. And I think I know for certain that our administrative teams at both schools want to work collaboratively with our music teachers to make that work in our schools for our students to maintain the programs that we are so proud of. We do have a communication plan moving forward. We've had principals that have shared survey results, process, and options considered with staff. There are some building-specific summaries and FAQ sheets that we've created, and they're just being distributed tonight, actually, and we're going to make those certainly public for everyone to see. That will happen this week. Obviously, we're facing some weather challenges, but these are optimistic about meeting these dates. Website communication and video of this meeting will be posted this week by the 16th. The principals are hosting parent informational and Q&A sessions at each school this week. The meeting will be March 15th at Welsh Valley at 7 o'clock, March 16th at Bala Cynwyd, is Wednesday and Thursday, Wednesday at Welsh Valley, Thursday at Bala Cynwyd. Both meetings are at 7 o'clock. Welsh Valley's meeting is in the library. Bala Cynwyd is meeting in the auditorium that evening. We'll have an Ask the Superintendent on Wednesday, and I'll be joining my colleague, Mr. Copeland, to answer questions about the schedule. We're still calling it Ask the Superintendent, though. It's probably going to be Ask the Assistant Superintendent, we'll again share this next Monday at the regular business meeting of the board, and throughout this whole process, encourage community comments, encourage your feedback, and then we'll present again to the curriculum committee of the board on April 15th, and the education meeting of the board on April 17th, at which point we will be requesting that the board make a recommendation on how we should continue. They're also, based on how we move forward, we'll have to get some course selection information from students to make sure that their choice is appropriately heard in the building of the schedule. And then the buildings will have 6th and 7th grade school assemblies. The 8th graders will be on to bigger and better things, but the 6th and 7th graders will be concerned, have questions about the schedule for next year, and we will certainly take those with our 6th and 7th graders. The other handout that we've shared just has this is really getting into the weeds here, but it gives you an opportunity to see the current number of course meetings and how they're delivered by grade at each school for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade for each course, and then the proposed number of meetings across based on the new schedule. The proposed number of meetings includes just the 4-day cycle. So there are disciplines up here for math, ELA, technology ed, and computers. On the school-specific sheets, which may be easier to follow, they'll have specific information of what the experience is currently at that individual school and what we are proposing. But there are these examples at each discipline at each middle school to give you a sense of the transition, and also a sense of, again, saying without judgment, but the differences between the schools, which there certainly are some. Okay, that's it.
Thank you, Dr. Everslide, for another iteration of this important movement in terms of what we're proposing with regard to the middle school schedule. And also thank you for the adjustments that were requested out of the curriculum committee of the board meeting, particularly with regard to the gathering of additional information and giving parents an opportunity to weigh in on some of the changes that will directly affect their students' experience. So at this time, I'd like to open it up to questions to the board. So I'll start at my left if there are any questions on this side. Mr. Fetterman?
Thank you, Dr. Everslide. I have no doubt that the students will have no problem adjusting to a new schedule, better than the parents do, I think. I still don't understand the 6 rotation schedule that my kids went through, but I just have a couple questions. One, how will, if at all, this new scheduling, the 4-day rotation, have any effect on the special programs such as waterbound, artifacts? Will there be any conflicts in scheduling? Will there be any problems in the implementation?
But that was certainly one of the things that we made sure we appropriately vetted before making this recommendation, and both schedulers and administrative teams have assured us that the programs will be able to continue and with fidelity.
Great. And the other question, was just a quick question, was looking at slide 27, which is the unique 6th grade schedule.
Yep.
I was just on period 7 when it talks about social studies or a support lab. How does that work? I mean, I thought social studies is a core.
Yeah, this is always the unique schedule. This is always the most brings a lot of questions because every student's program is so individualized. So one of the things that is a consideration that if a student has a level of support that the IEP team deemed to be significant enough that a student would have ISL every day, which is a possibility for some of our students, that ISL would have to replace one experience. One of those considerations that's sometime pursued is social studies. We try for that not to be the case, but it oftentimes is a difficult decision for families to make, whether or not it would be for a 6th grade student, it would be social studies, or would they want their child to miss some personal development experiences? It's a very difficult decision. That's why we have to individualize it for each student.
So this is just a sample. This isn't.
That's just a sample.
This wouldn't be.
It would not
Okay.
be. No, we would never say to a student, "You have ISL, therefore you must miss social studies." In fact, we try for that not to be the case.
Okay. Thank you.
Dr. Gilbert?
Just to clarify, though, that actually the current proposal makes it less likely for students to have to make those decisions than they currently do. Is that accurate in the sense that you've said that if you go to the 4-day rotation, then you wouldn't need to, you could replace the second choice? If that makes sense.
It does for 7th and 8th grader, not for 6th grade.
Oh, sorry,
But-
this is
but
6th grade.
You're right.
Okay.
But in 7th and 8th grade, they would have the
So
opportunity to.
that makes sense, actually,
Yep.
right? Because you actually have the choice in those, okay. And of course, now I've just totally lost my train of thought where I was going. Oh, I know what I wanted to ask. So, and actually, we've discussed this in the curriculum committee at length and will be as well again, so just to let people know. But I was curious, so we were talking about increasing choice of specials or personal development days, and which I think is very much aligned with our strategic plan, which is great. So I'm just curious, the choice is going to be, and now I'm wondering if I'm getting it correct for each grade, but the choice is going to be to add music or phys ed, correct? In
7th or 8th.
in 7th and,
So 7th or 8th, correct. If you look at the top right,
what number are you on?
I'm on
sorry, I've
slide
lost-
22, I'm sorry.
Okay.
On slide 22, there are the 3 experiences students would have for 45 days throughout the year: phys ed, music, health, and then they'd have
Okay.
the additional phys ed or
Now
music.
Now I understand. So if you look at that, so students are able to choose an additional music or P, and then they're going to be choosing, in 8th grade, they'll also be choosing 2 of the 4 options of
Correct.
the ones on the bottom. Okay. So I guess part of my question is it possible, let's say a student is not a music student or interested in P, is it possible to include an additional art if they're not choosing art below? Or is that just so complicated that it's, in other words, why wouldn't you go to even more choice?
So one of the challenges of this is to say not only how much choice is too much choice, and I don't even mean that by how much we trust the student or would want to empower the student. I just mean to assess the impact on whether you can do it or not, whether we are able to do it. And one of the things I think I know we're committed to is to exploring this on an ongoing basis and seeing to what extent can we logically expand student choice, where students would have more input in a way that would be both doable, feasible, practical for them. That said, we do that right now. If there are extreme circumstances or a student has a particular area of interest and has a special request, we do what we can to try to accommodate that right now. And so there's no reason that we wouldn't continue to.
Okay, so, but your point is then that there's been a lot of thought clearly put into what is actually both desirable and feasible. Yeah, thank
I
you,
think so.
that's helpful. That's
The
helpful.
administrative teams at both middle schools have been phenomenal at looking at options, being very open-minded, and practically exploring those.
And we're not just saying that because they're here tonight.
All right, no,
They
thank you,
are
that
here
was
tonight.
helpful.
Just a quick follow-up on Dr. Gilbert's question. So do we anticipate students being able to get their first choice in terms of those there's those special areas that they really want to double up on? Do we anticipate, maybe a certain percentage not being able to, or do we feel strongly that we'll be able to accommodate those kinds of requests?
So based on the request that we've we've already asked the students that and assessed whether we can do that. Most kids will get their top choice, but not every student will get their top choice. But every student will definitely get one of their top two, and every student will not get their fourth choice.
Well said. Thank you very much. Questions to my right, Mrs. Pollard?
Yes, thank you for all the hard work that the team has done. And this is sort of piggybacking on Dr. Gilbert and Dr. Van Lynch. And it begins in the middle school, students at risk. And I know there's with choice, it's a better idea of their academic life. But in considering all the things that they could choose, and maybe this child just doesn't appear to be interested in anything, what happens to that child at risk? And I know, I mean, we haven't done this yet, so you don't have any statistics, but, you know, in planning, was that child thought about?
Well, I think that when we talk about student choice, they're not. We also aren't just letting kids make decisions without any advice. And so based on the student, the family, we'll have counselors, administrators sit with families and really think of the options. I mean, one of the things that we're always sensitive to is the middle school experience is very different than the high school experience, than the elementary school experience, and then they go through the same transition to high school. And our teams and our families will collaborate and say, this may be a strong consideration. We really would suggest that this is a support that you would take, and based on what we know about your child, this would be how I think we should make it work in the schedule. What do you think? So we think that they really take a collaborative approach to it.
I like that. What do you think?
Yeah. I'll write that down.
Ms. Robinson, any questions?
Thank you again for the presentation. I was at the curriculum committee meeting the other day and asked my questions then. Thank you.
Mr. Driscoll? Okay. Dr. O'Leary?
Yeah, I think you're going to detect a theme here because my question's about the specials also, and I think that's what I'm sort of hearing around the community is the concerns around the special. So just in terms of process, if I'm a sixth grade parent and concerned about the amount of phys ed, for example, or a seventh grade parent whose child does not get into the art class and you feel that that's really important for your child, what would be the process for them to, you know, hear what the kid happened to the schedule? How would they know who to go to? How would they, is the administration prepared to hear those requests, or what is it going to look like over the summer? I assume this would be over the summer and early fall.
Well, I think it'll be, well, we certainly will be communicating with our incoming families that are new to middle school, excuse me, and talking about the different personal development experience. And one of the things that I think you'll hear from our teams at the school is kind of this middle school philosophy that you get a lot of you get a little bit of a lot of experiences, and you have some of that in elementary school, but that intensifies. You go from 5 experiences to 8 experiences, and having a balanced approach to those is one of the things that we believe in is strong, brings strongly, and especially at the 6th grade level, with having that foundation of having a little bit of a lot. That said, we never would shut the door on parents advocating for their child on what specifically would benefit their student. And I think I know that there's been a stance of flexibility from the teams to try to create a program that is successful for students.
Just to follow up, so when would parents find out what electives their child has been assigned to?
Well, one of the challenges that I didn't speak to specifically is the kind of the technical back end of this process. I can tell you specifically the high school timeline because we've built that schedule and know how long it takes. There will be a change to how the technical back end to that, but we will much like we do at the high schools, send students what their verification of their courses prior to leaving for the school year, so they would have so they would know what courses they would be rostered for, and then spell out a process for what they would do if they had any questions about that.
That sounds really good. Thank you.
Additional question, please?
To follow up on two things. With regard to the kids who may not get their first choice in the 7th grade, would they go to the front of the line in 8th grade, for instance? Would there be some way that they would get their first choice at some point if they couldn't be accommodated in that year? And that's just, I mean, I know you might not have the answer to that. I'm just saying, I was thinking out loud.
I don't have the answer to that, but what I will say is that was the fear of, again, how much choice do we want to overpromise? How much do we want to see the feasibility? And one of the things that we kind of say at the high school level is, kids vote with their feet, and then we try to keep up. So they tell us where they want to go, and then we try to make sure that we can accommodate that.
Right.
So we'll learn more about that and schedule appropriately.
Yeah, that was the second part of my question was, of the electives or the specials that you talk about, are there ones that are like much more popular than others? In other words, where people you can anticipate that more people will want than others? I guess that's...
Well, one of the things that I thought very interesting is that we surveyed the students and asked them like what some of their, and there was a really healthy balance across the disciplines, which I thought spoke well to our programs and to our a range of student interests. And so I know that our personal development teachers will rise to the occasion and continue to make their programs real valuable.
And the other question, I'm sorry, is just which of the is phys ed still a state requirement?
It is.
Are any of the other personal development, are there any state requirements with regard to the other electives, or is it
health? But not until high school. I don't even think health is a middle school.
But phys ed's a requirement
Just
for
phys
6th,
ed.
7th, and 8th grade. Right.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. At this time, I'd like to move to the public comment portion of the meeting. As I stated at the beginning of the meeting, we're going to wrap early, given the impending snowstorm, so folks can get home safely. If you could come up and sign in with Ms. LaPera. There's a 3-minute time limit. If you could introduce yourself and let us know where you reside in the district. Thank you. Oh, the other piece I want to say while we're getting started with public comment is that the presentation from this evening and the handouts as well, correct, Mr. Copeland, will be on the website on Board Docs. So for your convenience, you'll have an opportunity to view those on Board Docs as well. Okay, first speaker, please.
Hello, I'm Cheryl Masterman. I'm from Villanova. I've been looking at this for the last few days, and I see some things that concern me. There's some issues that make it a little bit tricky. And the two topics that concern me the most are PE and music. Partly because I know this community, and I know that you'll recall 4 years ago, PE was a big topic when we were talking about elementary school changes. And I'm not intentionally saying that these are at all the same. We're talking about a different type of change to this schedule for middle school, but the topic will still be the same. In that I see PE will be, for 6th graders in particular, the amount of minutes per rotation will be reduced. And the parents in the elementary schools have just talked about increasing physical activity for their kids, so as soon as they get out of 5th grade and they get into 6th grade, they're gonna have an automatic reduction again. So I see that as a concern for that population. The other problem is with the music, which is very specific to the music program in general, because music is more of an ensemble type of activity. Whenever you start looking at giving people options to take more or less, then you're affecting the group. That would be like saying you're going to play on a sports team, but you only have to come half the time. Some kids will come half the time and other kids will come all the time. It's going to affect the outcome of the product. And Lower Merion has a top-notch music program, but I see that it will suffer because the 6th graders coming in will automatically have a reduction in minutes of instruction, which will be a snowball effect for the music programs going into 7th grade, 8th grade, and on into high school, because your foundations are laid in 6th grade. And the kids coming from elementary school have had limited amount of music instruction, but they've been working on it. When you get to 6th grade, it's when you really lay that foundation. And a lot of students will, I am afraid, will lose interest in music because the faster you progress, the more you enjoy it. So those are some of my concerns. Thanks.
John Neary?
Okay, Dr. Everslock, would you mind just responding? Because I know that question came up in curriculum committee of the board in terms of minutes versus experiences, so I think it might be good to offer some additional context.
Sure, and thank you, Ms. Masterman, for your comments. As far as the phys ed is concerned, one of the things that we felt was important to the schedule is have a balanced approach to the sixth grade personal development experiences, and I would argue that having an increased health experience to balance with phys ed is important to not only for students' actual physical exercise, but learning about the wellness certainly that goes along with that. The music would be allocated similar to the other personal development experiences in sixth grade, where we're not valuing it less or more than the other experiences, but keeping it equitable. We are allowing music as an option for students that wanted to double up in sixth grade. It's the only personal development experiences that we're allowing students to double up, so they can do that. However, it would be at the expense of another course. But as I said, I think that the music, the nuances around the music program are ones that we will, of course, commit to making work to where we'll continue to have a wonderful product and experience for our kids.
Thank you, Dr. Everslock. Next speaker, please.
Hello, my name is John Neary from Rosemont. First off, I would like to thank Dr. Everslock for the presentation. It's quite informative. The one thing that I noticed from the presentation is, particularly with the schedules, I noticed that the time between the sets in middle school is 3 minutes on the current schedule. It was 4. Having been in middle school for the past 3 years at Welsh Valley, an observation that I've made is there's not a whole lot of excess time between classes to move from one place to another, particularly in Welsh Valley, where in some cases there's quite a distance from one place to another. So my concern is that if a student has to talk to a teacher for a moment after a class, how are they going to be able to make it to their next class on time, say if they miss a day of school and they need to confer with their teachers in each class? Thank you.
Thank you, John. Thanks for coming out and asking your question. We did speak about that as the teams at the middle schools. Most of our classes at the middle school are clustered, so the teams that if you're on the A team, for example, the A team might be their classrooms are close by. So in most cases, we anticipate there not being an issue with students getting to class. However, there will be 2 times a day when students are going, at least 2 times a day when students are going to specials. And the middle school principals talked about making sure that we reculture and are honoring students' time. One thing we certainly don't want to do is we're not looking to challenge kids to get to class any faster. We want to have adequate time to get to class, and we're confident that the teachers will work with students in that case.
Can I just follow up on that question quickly? And that can be really stressful for some students who are very literal about the times and the bells. Will there be a management program for that, or how will you help relieve some of that stress?
I think it's something we'll have to work with the buildings on how to transition students. I mean, I think there are a number of strategies that we've done in the past, including. I don't want to speak to what the principal's doing right now. When I was at Welsh Valley, we didn't ring the bells at all for the first few weeks of school. So students who were transitioning from 5th to 6th grade, that they weren't used to having to get to class, and so part of the transition is them learning the campus and so forth. So I have found the teachers to be incredibly flexible with that,
and are very sensitive to where students may be traveling from, and know that as BC is expanding and Welsh Valley covers a lot of geography, that there are sometimes a trek that students have from class to class.
You know, can I just add that I think one of the benefits to evenings like this and evenings when the principals have the opportunity to talk is to hear what some of these issues are so that we can work these into our schedule. I thought that was an excellent question about the time. They're all excellent questions. I don't need to pick on anybody's in particular. The issue of what happens if you didn't get your first choice, second choice. I mean, I've been a middle school administrator. Those are things you work into the system as you move along. So.
My name is Michael Neary from Rosemont. Thank you, Dr. Esselstyn, for a very nice presentation, very informative. Appreciate it, and I appreciate giving a minute to talk. I did have a question. You mentioned about trying to align the high school and the middle school because of kids taking advanced math. And a good friend of mine, his son, has done that. I'm curious, how many kids are in the district doing that? You know, is it 100 kids or is it 3?
Well, right now it's 0. We don't have schedules that make that possible. So
Okay.
we accommodate students, middle school students, in the middle school, regardless of where they are.
But do you have an idea if you could accommodate?
I mean, it's still a relatively small number of students in each building. We would like we do currently with the high school, we look to align staff, and first, if you need to share students between the middle schools, I mean, both middle schools have talked to, for example, the number of students that might be taking Algebra 2 next year in the middle schools, which is traditionally a high school level course. We would, if not aligned, offer 2 small classes at each school, maybe 4 to 6 students. We would certainly look as a possibility to make that 1 class across the district.
Yeah, I'm just not sure, you know, with just a couple kids, whether it's worth, if that's a real driving factor to.
Yeah,
to
I would
align
say, and
to.
I appreciate that question, because it's really not a driving factor to this.
And I'm going to pick up another question, or another thing that I've seen with my kids. John's my son, and Katie's in middle school right now. I have heard about the lunch period being 30 minutes. That I've heard for a couple of years now that it's just enough time, you know, between getting there, getting your lunch, getting in, eating, and you're back in class. Really not any kind of time for downtime. They don't have 10 minutes or so to kick back or get outside. They're sort of in the cafeteria. I mean, I'm not there, so I don't know, but I have heard this, and I also have John said that getting from building to building in Welsh Valley can be pretty challenging. I know it's probably a contractual situation with the number of minutes in the day, but if you could add 16 minutes, give them 8 minutes at lunch and 8 extra minutes, 1 minute per change, that might help relieve a little stress for the kids and give them a couple minutes to stretch their legs and get some fresh air.
I'm sorry, I'll let you finish.
No, I think I'm done.
So I think the length of the day is a restriction, not only contractual, but also just transportation-wise and those kinds of things. Our facilities folks have met with a consultant to look at ways that we can reorganize both Bala-Cynwyd and Welsh Valley. It's not just a time period, it's a serving line issue, so we're looking to improve that as we move forward.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. There are other speakers? Please.
Hello, good evening. My name is Mina Obahat. I am current parent of a 5th grader at Cynwyd, so I will be going to Bala-Cynwyd. I keep saying Cynwyd, Bala-Cynwyd Middle School. Thank you for the presentation. This is my first attendance of a board meeting. Question I have is, I'm also on the board of the Lower Merion Page, so if you could, I was trying to take notes and follow along, as far as how challenge is incorporated, as far as where the kids have to make the choices and what potential specials or personal development will be, I guess, in lieu of challenge, what they need to pick. And as far as, again, kind of going on top of the math enrichment and single subject acceleration, what day cycle is the high school on? Does it run on did you say a 5-day cycle or 4-day? Okay.
So the high school runs on a 4-day cycle, but I also want to de-emphasize that the high school, middle school alignment is really low on the priority list of benefits that we see from this. Regarding challenge, it's a very difficult question to answer because the amount of support that a student were to receive is decided upon by the GIEP team. So when a gifted IEP team meets with the family and determines the appropriate level of service for that student, then we would discuss collaboratively with the family where we would get that time. So, for example, if the team decided that it was most appropriate that the student would receive support 1 out of 4 days, then it would maybe replace one of those experiences. If it was 2 out of 4 days, it might replace 2 of those experiences in 6th grade. So it's really based on the individual student and what's best for that student.
So it's not like elementary where it's two sessions per 6-day cycle.
Correct. I mean, it could be. I mean, it wouldn't be a 6-day cycle, but it could be 1 day out of 4. It could be 2 days out of 4. It would be based on what the need of the student would be.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for questions. Any additional public comment? Okay. Just quickly before we adjourn, I just want to reiterate the meetings that Dr. Everslag mentioned in the communications plan on the presentation. So March 15th, Welsh Valley, and March 16th, Ballard Kenwood Middle School parent information and question and answer sessions. There'll be an Ask the Superintendent / Assistant Superintendent on March 15th. And our regular business. Messing up my flow here. Regular business meeting next Monday, March 20th, we'll have an additional update, correct, of this presentation, and then another curriculum committee meeting of the board, April 5th, and finally, education meeting of the board, April 17th. So the goal here is obviously to get extensive public comment. Folks are more than welcome to submit electronic feedback to the board via community comments at lmsd.org. And we want to hear from you in terms of what the best next steps are and take those into consideration as we make revisions.
This is all live on Board Docs, so.
Everything's live on Board Docs per our board secretary, Ms. LaPera. So you are welcome to take a look and read that. And with that, we are adjourned. Please, everyone, be safe getting home.